that, and the helmet itself, I don't think is going to really show any background through there, but maybe on these leaves as they disappear into the background, you may see some of that underpainting. I really enjoy seeing that.
You are in for a treat today. We are live with Jeff Legg, one of the world's great still life artists. And actually, he's got a couple secrets up his sleeve he never talks about. Maybe I'll get him to talk about that today. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Eric.
And you're in your studio you've moved. You were in Colorado. Now you're in?
I'm in Northwest Arkansas.
Okay.
In the Bentonville, Rogers area.
And how long you been there now?
It's been about 4 years.
Oh, I guess it seems very recent to me. I didn't realize it had been 4 years.
Time flies.
and you just built this magnificent new studio, which has probably been going on for a couple of years. So maybe today you'll show us a little of that too.
Yeah, I'll do my best to give you a little glimpse of my setup here and some of my props and things.
Okay. So what are we going to do today?
I thought I would kind of give people like I said, a taste of how I set things up for a still life painting and a little bit of the process. It'll be a little different than what I do in a workshop where you have, you're doing a demonstration, you're trying to show the whole process in a short amount of time, which is very difficult when the process in the studio actually takes days and days of layering and glazing and building up things. So yeah, but I'll try to give people kind of a feel for what my beginning is and my process.
So you were at the very first Publishers Invitational that I did.
I sure was. Yeah.
And gosh, I don't know how many years ago that was. It was probably 12 or 15 years ago.
I think it was about 12 years. 2008, I believe.
Sounds about right. I remember when I learned about you painting portraits, when you set up a portrait with one of the guys, Peter Miller, who was there, and you lit him by candlelight because we didn't have any lights, and you painted him by candlelight, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I had to light up my palette by candlelight too, so it was a bit tricky.
You're truly an old world kind of guy.
Yeah, at least I didn't have the candles on my hat, like you see Van Gogh, I think, did that once or something. Anyway.
That's probably why he cut his ear off. He probably had hot wax strip on it and it burned it. Had to stop the pain.
Could be.
So Jeff, why don't we go ahead and get into what you were going to teach today?
Okay. What I thought I would go over a little bit is my process being a little unconventional to many people that paint in oils. I've sort of developed these ideas because I like to work quickly, relatively quickly, and with oil paint, as most of you know, can dry very slowly. So, gosh, it's probably been over 10 years ago, I started painting some in Alkyd oil, which is a fast drying oil. I'm using Gamblin, which is their fast matte, is their Alkyd. And basically it will dry within, depending on the humidity and other factors, how thick you paint, it will dry in a day or maybe a couple of days at most. So this allows me to really build up textures more quickly, allow those to dry, do scumbling and glazing over that. So that's a little different than traditional oils in that you might have to wait a week or even weeks before you go to the next step. So this really allows me to speed things up quite well. I also wanted to kind of show a little bit of the studio space and how I set up the light. Typically, I would be working under just my north light because of this. Today, this filming, I have an extra light set in place just so that we have plenty of light to see with for the filming. But I'll grab my camera here and my phone and see if this works. So here's my, I can't really see what I'm doing, but there's my north windows. And if I step back here, you can see sort of my setup. Here's the painting that I'm going to be working on today. And this is an earlier painting, which was the same subject.
We can't see the earlier one.
Oh, can you see that?
That's the earlier one. Okay.
Yeah. And this is the setup for today, if you can see that. Anyway, here's a little bit of my prop selection. There's the light that I have set up for today, and my palette. I can't tell what you're seeing very well, but anyway.
Hey, Jeff, would you talk about the shadow box that you've created? Because that's something most people don't get to see.
Yeah, so there's the shadow box, which is just cardboard, basically. And I've put a little lid on top to create more darkness in the background. Again, there's an earlier version of that paint of what I'm doing. I'm doing a different composition today. And then here's my palette is to my left. So that's basically it. And of course I have this artificial light today. You can see there. Normally it would not be this much light.
Can you go as far back to the back of the room as possible, so show the whole room overall?
Right. How's that?
Looks good. What is the size of your studio?
Well, this particular room is about 20 by 24, I think. And it has about 19-foot ceilings. You can see it's way up there. And then here's my little drawing table. And then there's a separate side room where I have paintings and my library. And then through these doors is my workshop for framing. And then there's lots of different paintings in process here. And that room goes into the kind of the kitchen area and the bathroom. So anyway, that's some more props over here.
Did you build this? You built this from scratch, or did you convert an old barn or something?
Well, it's a fairly new barn, basically a large metal structure. It's about 2,000 square feet. Let's see, I'll go into this room here. Turn some lights on. So yeah, it was basically just a empty shell, and I designed it and had someone basically build it, and then I did a lot of the finish work as far as painting and wall texture and things like that.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You have tons of props.
We've got lots of props. You can see there's more up there. Anyway, let me put this back in the.
And do you find you're reusing props frequently, or do you or do you just like use them one time and then move on?
Well, it just it depends. I've painted this helmet several times. Some props I tend to like to revisit. Other props I haven't even painted yet, but for me, it's just really nice to have those available. It gives me some options, some ideas, inspiration for different compositions. And so again, these I believe, these are all painted with Alkyd oil. So as you can see on this painting, there's a lot of, let me get this so I can just zoom in. You can see the texture. There we go.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Lots of texture. And the only way to achieve that quickly is with the fast drying oil. There's lots of thin passages back in the background, but lots of buildup of texture in here and some of the rocks and things.
Jeff, do you use Alkyd for everything, including your glazing?
I do, yes. And I use, as far as the medium goes, it's Gamblin slow dry is what I mainly use. Although sometimes I'll use their Neo McGilp. But the slow dry, let's see, where's my bottle here? Here's a bottle of the slow dry. And it's kind of a misnomer. It doesn't slow down the drying time. It just isn't, it's not as fast as their other mediums. So it does actually make the paint flow much better. Of course, for glazing, you need to really thin the paint out. So I don't do a ton of glazing, but I do enough that, you know, it's very handy to have that fast drying oil so that I can glaze over dry paint and not wait weeks or, you know, whatever for the paint to dry. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense, yeah.
So here's another painting done with Alkyd.
Wow.
This is, again, lots of texture in the scales of that fish.
So tell me about painting a fish, because that's got to be an experience that you want to do fairly quickly.
Yeah, they, depending on the fish, they can go bad pretty quickly. So I'll tend to, you know, if I don't finish a fish the same day, I may put it back in the refrigerator and then bring it back out, maybe spritz it with some water to get the shine back. And if the fish is gutted, it's going to last much longer. So the worst though I ever had was I did some dead ducks.
Oh no.
Like hanging on a wall, and
yeah.
I don't know why, but I didn't clean I didn't field dress the ducks, so they really reeked pretty quickly. But let me move this down. You can see something else.
Tricks of the trade. That's interesting.
Right.
So you must go nuts in antique stores. It looks like you like, especially like old helmets and old metals.
Yes, I love patina. I love age. This is a recent piece that was a commission, and the client wanted peaches. He actually sent me a crate of peaches. So I did this one for him, and I decided to do another one based on basically the same, let me sit this down. The same three peaches, but just a variation of the same painting, a little bit smaller.
Oh, nice. Beautiful.
So again, this has very thin passages in the background, but very built up in the.
Can you bring that real close to the camera so we can see it? I'll tell you, move it over. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Just beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, you might actually make it as a painter.
Well, I'm working at it. Let's see.
You guys enjoying this?
This is a fairly recent painting. Whoops. Can't tell where I'm at here.
Lovely.
Again, you can maybe get an idea of the texture. I really like having pay a lot of attention to the surface quality. I don't like thin paintings. I like to see I like it to look like a painting.
Yeah.
And, so I like the thickness that you can achieve with oils and the thinness as well. So I try to use the full range of transparency to opaque.
Somebody asked what you varnish these paintings with.
Right now I'm using the Gamblin Gamvar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very forgiving, which is important with varnish.
Yep. I varnished my self-portrait last night.
And it's also very easy to remove if you ever have to remove it. I found out the hard way.
You spilled some Gamsol on it?
No, I just had a client send me back a painting that had some damage, and I was able to restore it. And the varnish was very easy to remove and
Nice.
reapply. So,
okay. All right. Well, I want you to have plenty of time to get started on your project here.
Okay. Well, I'll give you one more glimpse here of a recent painting.
Wow.
Again, these are on most of these are on masonite, with the exception of that fish was on linen.
How do you prepare your masonite?
Well, different ways. This particular one is a pre-primed panel by ampersand.
Okay.
But I'll tone it first. I'll show you that on the piece that I'm going to start today.
Okay.
But yeah, or sometimes I'll take masonite myself and I'll sand the surface to get the shine off of it, and then apply gesso.
Yeah.
And then tone it.
Yeah, I like ampersand panels. I use them a lot.
Well, I like really smooth surfaces. So,
they're here in Austin, and I've never gone over to their location, but I understand at least pre-COVID, you could go over there to their warehouse and buy things at a discount.
right.
So when you come to town to film your video, you'll have to go over there and stock up.
Definitely. Let me move these paintings out of the way real quick, and then I'll get started.
All right. Oh, that's nice. Judith says Jeff may be the favorite artist you have done so far on your broadcast. That's nice, Judith. Thank you.
Judith is so sweet. I paid her to say that.
Yeah. You obviously paid her well.
Yeah. She's a very sweet lady. Okay, so here is the sketch. You can see that for today's start.
Do you always do a preliminary sketch that large?
Actually, I don't. I typically will do just a little thumbnail of the composition, but since I had a lot of time to think about this, I thought I'm going to try. I used to do this some, but I really wanted to work out the composition and get a feel for what this painting will look like, value relationships. So I did this charcoal, and it gives me I haven't painted in a while, and it felt really good to draw and just kind of get back into the saddle. I was in Southern California for a couple of weeks, kind of on vacation, and so I've been away from the easel for a bit, and it helped me to warm up and really think about this idea that I had with the helmet. So
excellent.
Anyway, so that's kind of the composition I'm going with.
All right.
But things will evolve and change sometimes, just depending on how things go. Every painting is a little bit different.
Okay.
Typically I'll work a thumbnail sketch for an idea, and it won't even necessarily be specific as far as objects are concerned. It might just be a design, like an abstract design. And then I'll take that abstract compositional design and add objects to it to create the still life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to get to see you do some painting here, right?
Okay. So here's the panel that I'm working on today. And
so used burnt umber, raw umber. What'd you use on that?
Okay, so this is a masonite panel that I prepared myself. It's been gessoed, and then I've gone over it with raw umber and a little bit of cobalt blue, so it's not quite as warm as just
neutral,
pure raw umber. So that's the toning, that's the background here. And then the block in, which I did yesterday to get a little bit of a head start on this, is just raw umber and black. And it's painted very thinly. It just gives me an idea of, where I want the objects placed, the shapes placed. compositionally.
Okay.
So how much time do we have?
We got about 25, 20, 23 minutes, something like that.
Oh.
We just lost your camera. If you can hear me,
What was going on?
it probably went to sleep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just can't
Oh.
see you.
Well, how do I get it back on here?
I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out. I will take you off camera for a second so that I can, so people will know that there is actually an image on the screen. Probably just touch the screen, I'm guessing, but maybe not.
I'm trying that. Can you hear me?
We hear you. Yes.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to log off and come back on.
I don't know. Maybe I'll improvise for a minute.
Okay. I'll try that.
So we have a lot of people watching from all over the world today, and I saw somebody new to me from Latvia. So welcome, Latvia. Hang on, I'm going to take him off so that we don't have his noise. And as soon as he comes back on, I'll bring him back in. Asheville, North Carolina, welcome. Let's see, Egypt is here. Somebody suggested I go over to Ampersand and maybe do a tour of Ampersand. I don't know if that's possible or not. I can explore that, and that might be kind of fun. Let's see here. Yeah, somebody else said do the tour. Yes, how many coats of gesso? We'll ask him. How many coats of gesso do you put on your panel?
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay, good. How many coats of gesso? I think this one was 3.
Okay.
It kind of depends on, how thin the gesso is or how thick it is. In this case, it was very thin gesso, so it took 3 coats.
Do you ever just use the gessoed surface they provide?
I do on the pre gessoed panels. I do.
Yeah.
And try to get this positioned. But sometimes I like a little more texture, so I might, build things up a little bit with texture with my gesso. Trying to get this set so you can see. Okay.
Yeah, maybe move a little bit more of that towards the helmet so we can. I'm not talking about closer, but just
okay.
There. Now we can see. Okay, good.
Right there?
Yeah. And then if you kind of stay off to the side when you're painting, that'll be helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get in front of it when I'm mixing or whatever, but okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, this is a process that, this painting will probably take 3 or 4 days to really get it to a place that even looks semi-finished, to my eye at least. And then it may take another week or 2 just to do little nitpicky things and do subtleties and gradation changes or color changes. So it's very much a process. It's the opposite of all the prima. And I can only show a pretty limited amount in this short amount of time, but at least you get to see kind of the initial block-in stage, which is very much how I would start any painting. And so I'm going to go right to the kind of the background area, and I have pre-mixed these colors so I don't have to waste time mixing. And this is just a very neutral, kind of a gray-green, which is actually the color of my studio. And so I can just go right in and cut around the shape.
Somebody watching from the Netherlands. Hello, Netherlands. I'll bet they've got some great props over there you'd love to have.
I bet they do. Collecting props is a bit of an illness, I think, for me. I'm kind of a hoarder, but at least I hoard good stuff, I think.
I was outside. I was at an antique store the other day, and I saw a helmet like that, and I thought, that's a Jeff Legg helmet.
Yeah.
Should have bought it.
Well, I love medieval armor. I have several helmets. In fact, I don't know if you saw when I showed the studio, I just recently purchased a suit of armor.
I saw that.
Yeah.
How cool.
So
You're painting pretty thin. Are you using a medium?
I am using the Gamblin Slow Dry,
Okay.
and I'm mixing the medium right into the paint as I go. And again, I'm not going to paint this whole background because it's just not necessary for this demo. But I want to kind of set up some basic value relationships. And there's really, I'd like to say that I get it right the first time, but I rarely do. I take a guess at what the color and the value will be, and then I adjust it. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to adjust it, well down the line in the process of the painting. But
So what is that color? Is that an olive green or what color?
yeah, it's olive green. It's mixed with black and yellow ochre.
They're already asking me to give you more time. Unfortunately, I don't have it today. I wish I could.
Yeah. Well, I'll do what I can do here.
Yeah.
So I would also take a fan brush, you can see, and I can use that to just sort of knock down the brush strokes. So, because in this case, I want a fairly smooth background.
But also knocks down the harshness of that edge.
Yes. Yeah.
As you blend it in.
Very, very astute observation there.
Yes. Well, that would be me. Very astute. Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm keeping the background very thin at this point. Again, I'm eventually cover all of this, but we're just trying to get to the point.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to take my pre-mixed gray, and again, I'm not real sure that it's the right color. It looks like it needs to be warmer, so I'm going to add some raw umber right into that gray and create this shadow side of this helmet. And again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to think about painting still life or figure, whatever it is, that you're painting shapes. You're not painting things. You have to think like an artist, to paint like an artist. You have to think in terms of just shapes of color and value. So I see this kind of triangular shape here with a curve through it. That's the shadow side of this helmet.
What are you going to be teaching on Realism Live? And are you on beginner day?
Yes, I'm on beginner day.
So you're going to teach beginning still life painting. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to just keep it really simple, very few colors, and just a very simple block in, basically, to kind of get people on the right track with oil. Okay, so there's that shadow shape, and now I think I'm going to grab my palette knife so I can really lay some paint on heavily, because the lights in a painting like this, a light shadow painting, the lights are painted with thick paint and the shadows are painted with thin paint.
Okay.
And that creates more of an illusion of form. So I'm just going to lay this color right on here with my palette knife, and then I'm going to move it around with my brush. Well, we have maybe 10 minutes.
You got about 15.
Okay.
Roughly. This is unfair to every artist, you know, and unfair to every viewer. I mean, you know, these things should be 4 or 5 hours long so people can do things properly. But hey, who has the time?
I'm really trying to do this how I would normally do it in my, you know, if I were alone, and to give people a real taste of what the process is like.
Are you trying to get any of that background underpainting to show through at all?
Not really. I might, once we get over here to the shadows, maybe some. It just depends on kind of how I've envisioned that. And the helmet itself, I don't think is going to really show any background through there, but maybe on these leaves as they disappear into the background, you may see some of that underpainting. I really enjoy seeing that that underpainting. It's kind of an unfinished look, but it's a
That gives it a little bit of a contemporary feel too when it's unfinished like that.
well, it's a little, yeah, and it's kind of mysterious. And when I first learned from my mentor in watercolor, we did a lot of watercolor that was a vignette. So the edges were always left open and kind of rough and unfinished. And I started at a very young age, and it just really stuck with me into oil painting. And I've always liked paintings that I go to a museum and see a painting that wasn't finished. So you can actually see some of the process of how the artist worked.
Right.
And so I started kind of throwing that into the finished painting as just part of my MO, I guess. Just since I liked it so much, I thought, well, why not just do some of that on my own work intentionally? So I see a lot more warmth in some of this metal. So I'm just going to lay some yellow ochre right into that gray.
That's one way to do it.
So I'm mixing on the surface, basically.
Somebody asked who your watercolor mentor was.
His name, he's passed away pretty young in life, but his name was Daryl Dishman. And I grew up in Joplin, Missouri. And he took me on as a student. He was a college art professor, and he took me on as a student when I was still in junior high.
Wow.
I studied with him for about almost 4 years, every week in his studio. And I really owe him a huge debt of gratitude for, I really consider that he taught me probably 90% of everything I know today. I learned at a very young age. But
and who was your oil mentor?
He actually, the man that got me started in oil his name was Bob Tommy, and he passed away very recently, like last week.
Oh no!
I think he was age 91. I don't know if I'd consider him a mentor, but he definitely, started me off in the right direction with oil. I studied at Atelier Lac in Minneapolis.
Oh, did you really? I didn't know that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
No idea. What a great background.
Yeah. So I studied there back in when I first got out of high school. I went to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design first, and then I was accepted into the Atelier Lac.
Well, that's really where the whole realism movement in America began.
Yeah. I wasn't there long enough to get into oil painting. I just did charcoal cast studies and figure studies.
Oh, still fabulous.
It was a very good experience. I'm glad that I did it. I learned a lot. But you mentioned that I do portraits and figures, and many people know that I do that. I haven't had a lot of them out there in the galleries or in public, but it is my first love. When I had that mentor when I was young, we did nothing but portraits and figures, and I just have always been in love with that. And still life kind of happened accidentally. Had a garden, and the models were free, and they stood very still. So I started doing still life, and they're oddly enough, they started selling, and I had 3 young children at the time that I had to feed them.
Yeah.
So,
You know, that's the funny thing about those kids. They want to be fed.
Right. And so I kept doing that because of that. I just found a market there, but it definitely wasn't a planned thing. I've always considered myself a portrait artist and a figurative artist, and I hope that before I leave this planet, I can do more of that and maybe get some of those works out there.
Well, I think what we ought to do is, when you're in Austin, you should do a portrait video too.
Well,
if you guys think that's a good idea, go into the comments and say so. Maybe we can talk him into it.
That's a thought. So now I'm going to grab just some pure white here because I really want a bright, thick highlight, at least to start with. And so I've loaded up my palette knife with lots of white here.
Is that, what kind of white is it?
It's titanium white.
And it's fast matte?
It's the fast matte, yeah.
Okay.
I've also, for years and years, I used Winsor & Newton Alkyd oil. But I'm kind of running out of that now, and Gamblin sponsors me, so I've started using more of the fast matte, and I really like it. It's great paint. All of the Gamblin products are wonderful. So that highlight is somewhere about there.
Pure white.
Pure white. Just for starters, you know, this, again, it's a process of glazing and layering and scumbling, and so this is not the final product, but it definitely is, you know, it's the basis that I'll be building on. The nice thing about keeping this paint really thick is I can kind of go in here and with my palette knife and scratch and scrape and create really interesting subtle textures. Another highlight up here. Let's see. It's going to be about here.
Yeah, in our camera angle, it's a lot different, you guys. So if it doesn't look the same, just know it's because of the camera angle.
Right.
He's doing it from his angle.
Yes, good point. Yeah, it looks completely different to me than it does to the viewer, I'm sure.
We got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Maybe 8 minutes. Everybody says, yes, you should do a portrait video. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that.
Well,
I was kind of joking.
if we do it, I'll make you a deal. Only if it's successful will we put it out there. I'd love to do that, though. That would be fun.
Yeah, well, I think that's you know, the deal we do with our artists anyway is if they're not happy with the painting, we don't release it.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes can be expensive. We had one time we flew in for a shoot. We had a crew. We did a painting, and I thought it was nice, but the artist just didn't feel good about it, so we trashed the project.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. But
it doesn't happen much, but you know, you have to do that because not everybody does a great painting all the time.
Yep, that's true.
So you said earlier how much time you'll spend. How much time, if you were working on this multi glazes and layers, how much time would you spend on this painting? Several days.
The size of the painting has a lot to do with it. This is a 24 by 24.
Yeah.
So, you know, realistically, if I really bore down on this, I could probably get it looking pretty good in a couple of days. But then, like I said, then comes maybe tweaking it with glazes or
Right.
scumbling or adjusting values or colors. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of adjustment that takes place.
And that's why you're laying in your lights early, because you're going to be glazing over them.
Right. So some of these pure whites would actually be not pure white by the time I lay in some glazing over the top.
Hey, Jeff, I have an idea. Now, you keep painting and keep talking. I'm going to slip out and I'm going to go find that portrait you did of me.
Okay.
All right. I'll be back. Keep going.
So I'm seeing a lot of different subtle value changes and color changes. And I really love subtlety. And I see like this helmet is a little bit rusty. So I can lay in some of those kind of rust colors. And oftentimes I'll push a color even beyond what I see. And then later I might pull it back a bit. So, you know, again, there's just lots of kind of pushing and pulling until the painting just feels right to me. I'm going to put a little cobalt blue in here just for some cool notes. And I know I'm using the palette knife a lot right now, but I'll also come in, that's in order to keep the paint nice and thick, but I'll come in with my brush and when the paint is still wet and make adjustments to it as necessary.
I'm back.
You're back. You find it?
I did. See if I can. So this is the Marlboro Man.
That was a long time ago, Eric.
Yeah, it was 2007, Jeff.
Yeah, that was painted in Fredericksburg, I believe.
Yeah.
You sat for me. But that was only, I think that was only about an hour and a half portrait, if I remember right.
Still one of my favorites.
Well, thanks. You look young.
This is back when I had facial hair.
Yeah.
And dark hair.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, you got about 5 minutes left. I'll let you keep going.
Okay. Well, I've just been talking away here while you were gone and just talking about making a lot of adjustments over time and pushing colors beyond what I even, you know, if I see a color, I may include it and even push it, but then later on I may look at the painting and decide that I pushed it a little too far, so I pull it back a bit.
Do you use any of the Portland grays or the gambling grays?
No, I mix all my own grays. Yeah. I will say that I spend a lot of time not painting. I sit back in my chair and I observe and I look at the work from a distance.
Right.
And I make decisions and then I go make the changes and then I go back and sit and see what I've done. And so it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of time observing. And many times I'll see things in my setup that, an hour from now I didn't see before. Color shifts, little subtle changes. And I love subtlety, and it doesn't show well over film or camera, but in person it can be very beautiful.
It'll show well when we film it in 4K. It'll show much better.
Well, you get a lot of close-ups too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the best way to see a painting is in person.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating hour. I wish we had time to continue, but some of the platforms cut us off, but also, unfortunately, they've got me scheduled wall to wall today.
Okay, well, I understand. I really appreciate you having me and being able to share a little bit of my studio and my process. So
Well, you've got 2 or 3 minutes left if you want them.
All right, I'll keep working here.
I don't want to get people mad at me and take your time away.
Okay. I'm doing a lot of palette knife right now because I just really, in this helmet, I want to zoom in on that first. That's where my energy and passion is in the subject matter. I know many times students will paint everything but their subject, but I'm a very big advocate of going right in for the focal point and not beating around the bush.
Yeah, I like that.
You have most of your excitement about the painting early, your inspiration, and that's hopefully what carries you through to finish the painting. But all my excitement is now, so I want to put that energy into the focal point, the main subject of the painting.
I think what would be a nice thing before we wrap is you show us that other finished painting again. Now that we've seen the process, if we see the close-up detail on the finished helmet, it would be it would stand out. We would understand it a little bit more. Keep in mind that Jeff's going to spend several days. He's going to be doing glazing, and scumbling, and look at that. Look at that. That's incredible. Oh, you even added dents.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see it's just a long process. So
that's stunning. Okay, now we probably should wrap up.
Alrighty.
Well, this has been fabulous, Jeff. Jeff is going to be on Realism Live. He is going to be on Beginner's Day, and he's going to be teaching beginner still life, and he'll be doing a full demo that we'll have an opportunity to edit down and get the full piece together. So, Jeff, we're excited about that.